In the calm town of Idra, nestled on the outskirts of Lagos, there stood a house that many envied. It was not just big, it was grand. White pillars kissed the sky. The compound stretched wide with flowers blooming like a bride on her wedding day. But behind its painted walls and expensive curtains, secrets were hiding like shadows waiting for sunset. The house belonged to Chief Johnny Okonkwo, a man known for his wealth, power, and charisma. Some called him Johnny the Gentle, for he was kind hearted and soft spoken, but firm when necessary. His wife, Madam Anita, was the opposite, sharp tongued, controlling, with a presence that could silence a room. Together, they were raising their adopted daughter, Lily, a bright eyed girl of just 10, with a smile that could melt stone. One hot Monday afternoon, the house was filled with the sound of music and clanging dishes. Anita's voice sliced through the hallway like a knife. Lily's sweetheart, come out, Joe. I brought a new servant just for you. From the corner, a slim, soft voiced woman in a neatly pressed uniform appeared. Her name was Camila, a woman whose eyes carried the weight of many untold stories. She had just been hired that morning, fresh from the village, but clean and polite. Lily peeped from behind the dining room curtain, her face unsure. Mommy, I already fed her? Lily said quietly, pointing to the puppy she had adopted weeks ago. Anita turned swiftly. En, fed her K. Did I say she's had enough? I decide that I'm a mother. Adoptive or not, I know what's best. Lily shrank back, and Camilla stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. Ma, I beg you. You can't treat a child like that. The room went silent. Anita's eyes burned like firewood under a pot of ogbono soup. Are you mad? Do you want to lose this job before you even settle in? Camilla stood tall. The owner of this house, Chief Johnny, he hired me. Only he can fire me. Just then, the front door creaked open and Chief Johnny's voice echoed in. I'm home. Hello, sweetheart. Lily ran to him like a bird finding shelter. Oh, honey, Anita cooed, switching to her sugary voice. Lily and I were just about to eat. I've been taking care of her all day. Johnny smiled. Ah, Anita, you're so caring. But behind that smile, a storm was brewing. Camilla kept her gaze low. She knew Madame Anita was putting on a show. Later that evening, as the sun began to slide down the sky like palm oil on a hot plate, Anita pulled Johnny into their bedroom. Sweetheart, let's talk. I don't think Camila is the right fit. Johnny looked surprised. But you said you needed help. Anita crossed her arms. I've changed my mind. That woman is stubborn and disrespectful. We'll find someone else. Johnny hesitated. She seems to care for Lily. They get along? Anita's lips tightened. Don't be fooled. I'll give you reason soon. You'll see. The next day came like thunder behind the clouds. Lily was playing in the garden while Camilla trimmed the flowers nearby. The air was peaceful until a sudden shriek shook the compound. Johnny! Come out now! Anita screamed from the balcony. Chief rushed out, his slippers slapping the marble floor. What's happening? Anita pointed dramatically. That woman! She tried to beat Lily. Camilla gasped. Sir, that's not true. I was just telling her not to eat unwashed mangoes. She raised her hand on my daughter. Anita cut in. Lily stood still, eyes wide, confused and scared. Johnny's face changed. Camilla, is this true? Chief, God sees me. I would never harm Lily. She's like a daughter to me. But Lily, scared and unsure of what to say, said nothing. Johnny sighed, his voice lowered. I hate lies more than anything in this world. Camilla, pack your things. Camilla's heart broke, but she didn't cry. She looked around the house one last time, then met Johnny's eyes. Sir, the real evil in this house isn't me. She walked away with dignity, leaving silence behind her like the smell of rain on dry earth. That night, Lily didn't eat. She sat on her bed, hugging the small blanket Camila had once wrapped around her when she had a fever. In her heart, she knew something wasn't right. Anita danced around, proud of her performance. That will teach her. Nobody talks back to me in my own house. But the house itself felt different now. The laughter had disappeared. Even the air felt heavier. Johnny stood by the window, thinking deeply. His wife's words, Camila's eyes, Lily's silence, it all weighed on him. He wasn't a fool, and he had lived long enough to know when something smelled off. He whispered to himself, Camila might have been many things, but she wasn't a liar. The stage was set. Secrets had been planted like bitter cola in the soil. And though Camila had left the house physically, her truth had stayed behind, growing quietly like a stubborn weed in a garden full of roses. The house of Chief Johnny Okonkwo was no longer just a mansion in Idra. It had become the house of secrets. It had been 2 weeks since Camila left the Okonkwo household, yet her absence still echoed in the hallways like an unanswered prayer. The compound remained spotless, the food still tasted fine, and the curtains still danced in the breeze, but the soul of the home was missing, especially for Lily, who now barely spoke unless spoken to. Chief Johnny Okonkwo noticed the change. The sparkle in his daughter's eyes had dimmed. The way she once skipped into his arms each evening had now become a quiet nod from across the room. He didn't say anything yet, but the man's mind was busy, piecing together the puzzle that was beginning to disturb his peace. Madame Anita, on the other hand, basked in false victory. Her heels clicked louder, her voice carried sharper, and the house seemed to tremble under her authority. But even she could feel something slipping. Johnny's silence was heavier than usual, and Lily's affection was out of reach. Still, she pressed forward. Good morning, madam. I was sent by the agency. I'm the new maid. The woman standing by the gate wore a simple gown, headscarf neatly tied, her arms firm and folded across her chest. Her name was Ngozi, but her neighbors back in Abekaliki called her Mama Lion, not because she shouted, but because she was fearless and wise. Anita gave her the once over and scoffed. We'll see how long you last, she muttered, turning her back. You say something, madam? Ngozi asked calmly. Ah, nothing, Jari. Come inside. Let's see what you can do. From the very first day, it was clear that Ngozi wasn't like the others. She didn't gossip. She didn't flatter. She didn't shrink herself to fit into Anita's controlling mold. She did her work perfectly and carried herself with dignity, more like a manager than a maid. One morning, Anita snapped over something minor. Ngozi, why did you wash Chief's shirts with the white curtains? Are you trying to bleach his clothes or what? Ngozi stared at her, then replied, Madam, with respect, check the baskets. The shirts are still inside. I never touched them. Anita opened the laundry basket, and truly, there the shirts were, unwashed, just as Ngozi said. Next time, look well before accusing someone. It is better to ask than to shout. Anita blinked, confused and momentarily speechless. No maid had ever spoken to her like that. Not rudely, just boldly, without fear. Johnny, from the upstairs landing, watched everything. He smiled. That evening, Lily quietly approached Ngozi in the kitchen. Auntie, you remind me of Camila. Ngozi turned, her face softening. Who is Camila, my dear? She used to work here. She was nice, very nice. But mommy didn't like her. Ngozi crouched and looked her in the eyes. Was she kind to you? Lily nodded. She called me Sunflower. I miss her. Ngozi placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. Then maybe your sunflower will grow again. Sometimes good people don't stay gone forever. The little girl smiled for the first time in days. That night, Johnny finally broke the silence. Anita, I've been thinking. She looked up from her iPad. About? Camila and everything that happened. Anita rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't bring up that village girl again. Johnny didn't flinch. I've been watching. Since she left, Lily has changed. Even the staff are walking around like ghosts. And whose fault is that? Mine? Anita snapped. I didn't say that, but I need to get to the bottom of it. Anita stood, defensive. Don't tell me you believe she didn't do it. I don't know what I believe anymore, but my instincts are never wrong. Anita didn't respond. Her face twitched, ever so slightly. The next day, Johnny returned home early. He called Lily to his study and sat her down gently. Sunflower, he said, using Camila's nickname. Tell Daddy the truth. That day, did Camila really try to hurt you? Lily hesitated. Her eyes watered. No, Daddy. She was trying to stop me from climbing the mango tree. She never touched me. Mommy got angry because I called Camila my mommy. Johnny's heart sank. That night, he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling fan, its slow creak in rhythm with his heartbeat. He had failed someone, a good woman, a protector. Days later, Ngozi returned from the market to find Johnny standing by the gate. Good afternoon, sir. Everything okay? Johnny nodded. Ngozi, I need to ask you something. You've worked here just a short while, but I can tell your spirit is strong. She smiled humbly. Thank you, sir. I need your help. I want to bring someone back. Someone we should never have sent away. Ngozi didn't need to ask. She already knew. Camila was in a small apartment on the mainland, doing tailoring to survive. She hadn't touched her maid's uniform since she left the Okonkwo house. When she heard the knock on her door and opened it to see Chief Johnny, she gasped. Chief! He removed his cap and lowered his head. Camila, I came to apologize. I was blind and I let the wrong person go. Please, come back. Not as a maid, but as family. Tears welled in Camila's eyes. Are you serious? He nodded. Lily needs you. I need you. Behind him, Lily peeked around his leg and ran into her arms. Sunflower! Camila whispered, hugging her tightly. Back at the mansion, Anita's scream could be heard 2 compounds away. You brought her back? In my house? Are you mad? Johnny's voice was firm, no longer soft. This house doesn't belong to lies. Camila stays, and from today she's not a servant. She's family. Anita's lips trembled, but the power had shifted. Ngozi from the hallway simply shook her head and muttered, Truth they always rise, even if you bury arm. And so the house began to change. Laughter returned. Lily bloomed. Johnny smiled again. But Anita? Oh, she wasn't done. In her heart, a new plan was already taking roots. And far away in a dusty orphanage, a little boy named Ben was about to become the center of a battle for love, justice, and belonging. Peace had finally returned to the Okonkwo mansion. Like morning dew settling after a stormy night, Camila, now no longer just a maid, had become the heart of the home. Her quiet strength softened the walls, and her laughter shared with Lily carried healing in its rhythm. Even Chief Johnny smiled more often now, the weight of regret slowly lifting from his chest. But not everyone welcomed the new warmth. Madame Anita, once the unquestioned queen of the house, now found herself an outsider in her own palace. Her commands were no longer met with the urgency they once demanded. Even the staff no longer trembled at her voice. Respect could not be forced. It had to be earned. And she was beginning to realize that hers had been lost. Still, she stayed, watching, waiting. But deep in her heart, she knew Camila had won. And though it bruised her ego, the truth was clear. Lily loved Camila like a real mother. And Johnny? He respected her now in a way he never had before. One chilly Harmattan morning, while sipping his black coffee, Johnny glanced at Camila reading a storybook to Lily. A gentle thought stirred in his heart, one that had been there, quietly growing. Camila, he said, I've been thinking. She looked up, alert but calm. Yes, Chief. Don't chief me, he chuckled. You're part of this family now. Call me Johnny. Or better still, Olga Johnny, like you used to. Camila smiled. That rare full smile that warmed even the coldest room. I want us to adopt another child, he continued. Someone like Lily. Someone who needs a home. A chance. Camila's face lit up, and even Lily clapped excitedly. A baby brother, she squealed. I saw one, Johnny said, at an orphanage in Ojudu. His name is Ben. Ben was a quiet 6-year-old boy with big brown eyes and a gaze older than his years. He had lost both parents in a fire, witnessed things a child should never see, but he didn't cry, not even once. He simply sat under the mango tree in the orphanage yard, drawing in the sand. Camila and Johnny visited the next day. The moment Lily ran up to Ben and handed him a flower, something shifted. He didn't smile, but he took the flower and didn't let go. Camila crouched beside him. Hello, Ben. I'm Camila. Would you like to come home with us? Ben didn't speak. He just nodded, slowly, carefully. And just like that, something sacred began to bloom. They began the adoption process immediately. Forms, visits, interviews. The whole thing moved quickly. Too quickly for Miss Hall, the lead caseworker, who didn't hide her distaste for Johnny the moment she saw him. So, this is your wife? She asked, scanning Camila like a customs officer checking for contraband. Yes, Johnny replied, his voice steady. And you are trying to adopt Ben. That's correct. She pursed her lips. Interesting. Johnny frowned. What's interesting about giving a child a home? She gave a tight-lipped smile. We'll get back to you. Camila watched her carefully. Something about the woman's body language, sharp, dismissive, felt all too familiar, like Madame Anita in her worst days. A week passed, then two, no call. Finally, Johnny stormed into the agency with Camila by his side. We've waited patiently, he said, but now we need answers. What's the delay? Miss Hall stood, arms folded. Mr. Okonkwo, I've decided not to approve your application. Camila gasped. Why? We met every requirement. You can reapply in a few years. Johnny's eyes darkened. Give us the real reason. Miss Hall narrowed her eyes. Fine. You want it raw? You, Mr. Okonkwo, don't fit the image of a proper father. Your record may be clean, but your background is concerning. Background? Camila said. Are you referring to his race? Hall didn't answer, but the silence was louder than a scream. Johnny took a step forward. You're denying a child a family because you don't like how I look? Sir, calm down. No, Johnny roared. I will not calm down when you are tearing a family apart because of your small-mindedness. That boy is my son. Security arrived within minutes. Sir, you'll have to leave. Camila held his hand. Let's go. We'll fight this the right way. But Johnny didn't move. We're not leaving without our son. Word spread fast. What Miss Hall didn't know was that Johnny Brooks Okonkwo had more than money. He had reputation. He wasn't just a wealthy man. He was a high-ranking police officer, decorated, respected, and beloved by many. That same evening, a familiar voice echoed through the adoption office's hallway. Everyone step aside. Two uniformed officers entered, guns holstered, badges gleaming. Behind them walked Officer Harry, a longtime colleague of Johnny. Brooks! I thought you were off duty. Johnny smiled bitterly. I was, but my family was under attack. Miss Hall stepped back. Wait, you're an officer? Johnny turned calm now, voice low and powerful. My name is Joseph Brooks Okonkwo. I've served this nation for over 10 years. I've arrested criminals of every kind, rich, poor, white, black, blue. Never judge a single one by their skin. He looked her dead in the eyes. But today, you judge me. The room went quiet. Even the air stood still. You looked at me and decided I couldn't be a good father. Not based on facts, not based on evidence, just appearance. Hal stuttered. I I didn't mean. Don't. Don't twist it. You humiliated my wife. You tore our daughter's hope and you tried to take my son. The director of the agency entered then, breathless. Yet, Mr. Okonkwo, I am so sorry. I had no idea. You know now, Johnny said. So fix it. Miss Hall was fired that same evening. As she packed her desk in silence, the staff whispered, this wasn't her first complaint, but it would be her last. Johnny signed the final adoption papers with Camila beside him. Ben stood by the door, holding Lily's hand, and for the first time since he lost his parents, he smiled. On the ride home, Ben crawled into Camila's lap. Johnny looked at his family in the rearview mirror, two children safe and happy, a woman of strength by his side, and for the first time in years, his heart felt whole. But not far behind them, Madam Anita watched through the window blinds, her mind calculating, her pride wounded once more. And though peace had returned to the Okonkwo family, a final storm was coming, one that would test them like never before. The day after the adoption was finalized, the Okonkwo house was alive with joy. Camila cooked a special pot of jollof rice, extra smoky, just how Lily liked it. Bon sat beside her, carefully peeling boiled eggs, his little fingers clumsy but eager. Johnny returned from work early, arms full of presents and a bottle of malt for everyone. It was a proper celebration. Laughter echoed through the mansion for the first time in a long while. The staff smiled without fear. The compound felt lighter, as if it had exhaled years of tension. Even the flowers by the fountain seemed to bloom brighter. But in the corner of the living room, like a storm cloud in a blue sky, Madame Anita sat in silence, eyes sharp, face tight. She watched it all, the bonding, the love, the joy, and it stung like pepper in a fresh wound. She had lost control. Camila had won. And now this boy, Ben, had been brought in without her blessing. She couldn't take it anymore. That night, Anita entered Johnny's study without knocking. You really went ahead with the adoption without me. Johnny looked up, calm but firm. I discussed it with the people who mattered. You were not one of them. Anita's nostrils flared. Is this how you repay me after everything I've done in this house? You mean after lying, manipulating Lily, throwing out Camila without cause? I was protecting this family. No, he said. You were protecting your pride. She laughed bitterly. So what now? Camila is the new queen of the house and I should just disappear. Johnny leaned back, voice low. You can stay. But if you bring war into this home again, I won't protect you from the consequences. Anita stormed out, slamming the door. But her silence after that wasn't surrender. It was planning. 3 days later, the family was called back to the adoption agency, an urgent review of the process. They arrived in good faith, expecting routine updates. But the moment they entered, they knew something was off. The receptionist barely made eye contact. Security guards stood stiff at every corner. And in the conference room sat a group of unfamiliar faces, including a stunned woman from the board. We've received a formal complaint, she began, questioning the legitimacy of Ben's adoption. Camila gasped. What? On what grounds? The woman didn't blink. Allegations of misconduct, emotional manipulation, and even abuse. Johnny stood slowly. That's ridiculous. The woman pushed a folder across the table. It was submitted anonymously, but it's detailed. Inside were photos of Ben looking distant, twisted captions, and even quotes falsely attributed to Camila, none of which had actually happened. Johnny's blood boiled. He didn't need to guess where it came from. Anita. Back at the house, Johnny confronted her in front of everyone. You went to the board? Anita folded her arms. I did what was right. That boy does not belong here. He is not our blood. He is not our problem. Ben, standing nearby, heard everything. Camila rushed forward. Anita! How can you say that? He's a child! Anita's face was ice. I warned you all. Now you will see. They'll take him back. Lily burst into tears. No! Ben is my brother! Johnny turned to Anita, voice shaking from suppressed rage. You've crossed the final line. Get out! Pack your things! She laughed. This is my house! Johnny's voice thundered through the compound. Not anymore! Your pride has burned every bridge! Leave! Now! But it wasn't over. The adoption board demanded a second interview, a psychological evaluation. Even Ben's school principal was called in for a character reference. It was war. Camila, exhausted but unwavering, held the family together like glue. She reassured Lily, comforted Ben, stood by Johnny. Every night she prayed fervently, tears mixing with whispered faith. Lord, don't let them break what we've built. Please. Ben, confused by all the tension, finally spoke one evening while sitting on Camila's lap. Auntie, are they going to take me away? Camila hugged him tightly. No, my son. No one is taking you away. Not while I still have breath in my body. The day of the final hearing arrived. Johnny wore his police uniform, not to intimidate, but to remind them of the man he was. Camila wore a plain green dress. Lily held Ben's hand like a shield. The courtroom was quiet as they sat. Then came Anita, dressed in dramatic black, as if she were mourning a death she had orchestrated. She took the stand and poured out venom. They manipulated that boy. Camila pretended to be a mother figure. Johnny used his influence. This adoption is a lie. The judge frowned. Do you have proof? No, she admitted. But I know what I saw. Then the judge turned to Johnny. He stood, not angry, just firm. I've served this country for over a decade. Protected children, arrested predators, solved murders. My hands are clean. My home is clean. And this woman, my wife, in name only, has tried to destroy a family out of spite. He looked at Anita. You hate that Camila succeeded where you failed. You hate that I found peace after chaos, but you will not take this boy from us. Camila stepped forward. Ben didn't just enter our house. He entered our hearts. He is our son. Ben whispered, I want to stay with them. Silence. Then the judge sighed. After reviewing the case, hearing the testimonies, and considering the evidence, or lack thereof, I hereby rule that the adoption stands. Ben stays with the Okonkwo family, permanently. Case closed. Tears fell freely. Camila collapsed into Johnny's arms. Lily kissed Ben on the forehead. Even the staff waiting outside cheered when they heard the news. But Anita! She walked out of the courtroom alone. No one followed her. No one called her back. For the first time in her life, she had truly lost. That evening, back at the mansion, a feast was prepared. Neighbors came by. Camila sat beside Johnny hand in hand. Lily danced around the garden and Ben, now smiling more often, was lifted onto Johnny's shoulders like a prince returning home. Ngozi, the strong maid-turned-manager, raised a glass of malt. To family, not by blood, but by love. Everyone cheered. But even in victory, Camila knew life had tested them and more challenges may come. But now they were ready. Battle won, stronger, and held together by something more powerful than fear. Love. Real, stubborn, unshakable love. Whispers behind curtains. No more tension in the hallway. For the first time in years, the mansion was exactly what it was meant to be. A place of peace. Camila, now wearing soft Ankara gowns instead of a maid's uniform, moved through the house not as a servant, but as a mother, a partner, and the soul of the home. Ben, whose quiet spirit once carried the weight of loss, now ran freely through the compound with Lily, the two of them giggling like twin stars. They climbed trees, played football with the guards, and sometimes just sat by the fountain sharing secrets only children understand. And Chief Johnny, Ah, Johnny was a man transformed. The burden of regret had fallen off his shoulders. His home was whole. His children were happy. And beside him stood the woman who had earned her place, not with manipulation, but with kindness. It was Sunday afternoon. Camila had just served egusi soup with hot pounded yam. Everyone ate in the garden under the shade of the orange tree. Even Ngozi, the ever-resilient housekeeper, joined them. No longer just staff, but family. Ben, Camila said, wiping his cheek. How do you like mommy's soup? Ben grinned, cheeks full. It's the best in the whole world. They all laughed. Lily leaned on Johnny. Daddy, can we always stay like this? Johnny smiled. Yes, my sunflower. Always. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the compound shimmered in golden light, Johnny and Camila sat on the balcony sipping zobo. I still remember the first day you arrived here, Johnny said, smiling. Camila chuckled. I almost didn't accept the job. Something in my spirit warned me. He turned serious. I failed you. I let you go when I should have protected you. Camila placed her hand over his. You made it right. That's what matters. Silence settled, warm and healing. Then Camila added softly, There's something I've been thinking about. Johnny turned. Tell me. I want to make it official. I want to adopt Lily too. Johnny blinked. You already are her mother? I know, she said. But I want the papers. I want it to say, on record, she's mine. Tears touched his eyes. She'll be so happy. The next few weeks were full of planning. While Camila filed papers to formally adopt Lily, Johnny took another bold step. He changed the name on their home's deed. From that day forward, the mansion in Idra wasn't just Okonkwo Villa. It became the house of Lily and Ben. The gate was repainted. The name was carved into a wooden sign surrounded by flowers. It became a symbol, not just of ownership, but of rebirth. Meanwhile, Anita had vanished from the social scene. The gossip in town was loud. She's gone to London to cool off. She's hiding from shame. She still thinks she'll come back. But Johnny paid no mind. He had no hate in his heart, just no space for bitterness. Ben and Lily had already forgotten the fear she brought into their lives. Children are like that. They heal faster than adults, if given love and safety. One evening, something unexpected happened. Johnny got a call from the same adoption agency that once stood against them. Mr. Okonkwo, there's a situation. A young girl was left at our gate. No name, no record. Just a small bag and a note that said, Please give her a good home. Johnny froze. We remembered your family and how you fought for Ben. Camila stood by the door, listening. Johnny looked at her. Another child? Camila took a deep breath. Bring her. They arrived the next morning. A tiny girl, no older than 4, sat quietly in a blue plastic chair, hugging a teddy bear. Her eyes held the same ancient sadness that Ben once carried. Camila knelt beside her. Hello, my dear. What's your name? The girl whispered. Amara. Camila smiled. Amara. It means grace. Ben stepped forward and held the girl's hand. Don't worry. They're nice. The adoption took months, but it didn't matter. By the end of the year, Amara Okonkwo was home. They made a tradition. Every Sunday after church, the whole family would walk barefoot on the grass in the backyard. No phones, no distractions. Just storytelling, games, and laughter. One Sunday, as Johnny told the story of how he met Camila, Amara raised her hand. Uncle, can you tell the story of how you knew she was your wife? Everyone laughed. Camila shook her head. Shy, Johnny chuckled. Ah, that one? That day she stood up to your auntie Anita like lion, I knew. This woman is not ordinary. She has spirit, and my house needed that kind of fire. They all clapped and whistled. Ngozi shouted, She give that Madam Woto Woto. Even Lily chimed in. Best mommy in the world. Camila, smiling through tears, whispered, This, this is everything I ever prayed for. One day, a letter arrived from Juanita. It was handwritten, no return address. Johnny, you were right. I was wrong. I let jealousy eat me from the inside, and by the time I realized what I'd lost, it was too late. I don't deserve forgiveness, but if you ever speak to Lily about me, tell her I did love her. I just didn't know how to show it. Johnny folded the letter and placed it in a box labeled Truths to Share Later. Some things didn't need to be spoken now, but one day, when Lily was older, she would know. And she would decide what to do with that truth. Years passed. Lily grew into a graceful, confident young woman. She studied law, wanted to fight for children like herself. Ben loved music, always drumming on anything he could find. And Amara? Ah, she was sharp, talkative, always asking questions. Johnny and Camila grew older, hand in hand, smiling through every stage. They built more than a family. They built a legacy. One night, during a quiet moment, Camila sat with her children under the stars. Let me tell you a story, she began. Once upon a time, in a big house full of secrets, a woman arrived with nothing but faith in her heart. She was not welcomed. She was thrown out, but love brought her back. Not because she fought with fists, but because she never stopped believing in what was right. The children listened, eyes wide. And now, Lily asked. Camila smiled. Now, that house has no more secrets, only love. Because family isn't about blood, it's about who stays when things fall apart, who fights for you, who loves you anyway. And so, in that bright compound in Idera, surrounded by the laughter of children and the whisper of mango leaves, they were finally, truly home.